The phone slipped from Vincent Blackwood's hand, crashing against the marble floor of his penthouse office as the stranger's words echoed in his mind. The orphan girl you just hired as your maid is your daughter. At 38, he'd built an empire feared across 5 states, but nothing had ever knocked the air from his lungs quite like this revelation. Vincent stared at the Manhattan skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows, his empire laid out before him like a glittering chessboard of high-rises and neon. Behind that carefully crafted exterior, designer suits, luxury cars, private jets, lay the ruthless calculations of a man who'd clawed his way from nothing to everything in just 2 decades. His fingers traced the thin scar along his jaw, a reminder of his first brush with death at 19 when he'd chosen power over love. That choice had cost him Sophia, the only woman who'd ever seen beyond the facade, who disappeared without a trace after their final explosive argument about the criminal path he was choosing. The security footage played on his tablet. Elena, the new maid, moving with quiet efficiency through the East Wing, her dark hair falling across features that had struck him as oddly familiar from the moment she'd arrived. Now he knew why. Those eyes were his own. That determined set of jaw mirrored the face that stared back at him every morning. Vincent buzzed his second-in-command, Marco, his voice betraying none of the earthquake happening inside him. "Get me everything on Elena Reyes. Birth certificate, orphanage records, every home she's ever lived in," he ordered, already calculating what enemies might use this information against him if word got out. He studied Elena's employee file, the photograph revealing details he'd somehow missed. The slight dimple when she smiled, identical to his own. The way her eyebrows arched when concentrating. Sophia's expression exactly. How had he not seen it immediately? A daughter he never knew existed, working under his own roof. The blood test results would take 24 hours, but Vincent already knew what they would show. He poured himself 3 fingers of whiskey, remembering that night 18 years ago when he'd told Sophia their relationship was over, that his new business associates required his complete devotion. Vincent checked the security feed again, watching Elena methodically cleaning the library, completely unaware that her employer was the father she believed had abandoned her before birth. The file indicated she'd grown up in 7 different foster homes after her mother died of cancer when she was 10, never knowing her father's identity. He'd killed men with his bare hands, ordered executions without blinking, but the thought of approaching this girl, his flesh and blood, filled him with unfamiliar dread. Vincent Blackwood, who feared nothing and no one, found himself afraid of an 18-year-old orphan with his eyes in Sophia's gentle hands. Late night found him in his private gallery, surrounded by priceless art acquired through both legitimate and shadowy means, searching old photos until he found it, the only picture of Sophia he'd kept. The resemblance between mother and daughter was undeniable, though Elena carried herself with a guarded wariness Sophia had never possessed. Vincent's security chief entered without knocking, laying down a comprehensive dossier. "She's clean, boss. No criminal record, excellent references from previous employers, graduated top of her class despite moving between foster homes." The unspoken question hung in the air. Why was the boss so interested in a maid? The man who ruled his empire with unforgiving precision now found himself studying footage of Elena's movements throughout his mansion, noting the book she paused to examine in his library, how she stopped to gently touch a wilting orchid in the conservatory. What kind of father would he have been if he'd known about her? The call came at midnight, his source at the hospital confirming the DNA match, 99.9998% probability of paternity. Vincent sat alone in his office, the weight of 18 lost years pressing down on shoulders accustomed to carrying only the burden of power, never regret. The decision crystallized as dawn broke over the city he controlled through fear and strategic violence. Vincent would approach Elena today, reveal the truth, and then what? Offer her money? Education? Or the darkest gift of all, a place in his world of luxury built on bloodshed? His reflection showed a man at the crossroads, a kingpin facing the one threat he never anticipated, the sudden, unwelcome emergence of a conscience, awakened by the daughter he never knew existed. Vincent Blackwood straightened his tie, summoning the courage to face the one person who might see him not as a mafia boss, but simply as the father who never knew she was alive. Vincent's finger hovered over the intercom button that would summon Elena to his office, a man accustomed to issuing life-or-death commands now hesitating over the simplest of actions. The anonymous caller had refused to identify himself, claiming only to be someone who knows Sophia would have wanted her daughter to know the truth. The security team had traced the call to a burner phone discarded in a trash can 6 blocks away. the mystery deepening when surveillance footage revealed a hooded figure impossible to identify. Someone close to Vincent knew his secret, possibly someone within his own organization, who saw an opportunity for leverage. Elena knocked precisely at 10 a.m. as requested, her uniform impeccable, expression neutral, but with a hint of apprehension. Meetings with the boss typically meant dismissal in her experience. She stood with perfect posture, hands clasped before her, unaware she was standing before the man whose blood ran through her veins. "You wanted to see me, Mr. Blackwood?" Her voice carried a subtle musical quality that transported Vincent back 18 years, to candlelit dinners with Sophia before everything changed, before he chose this life over the possibility of a family he never knew was already beginning. Vincent gestured to the chair across from his desk, noticing how she perched on its edge, ready to flee at the first sign of danger, a survival instinct developed through years in the foster system. "How are you finding your position here, Ms. Reyes?" he asked, studying features that were a haunting blend of himself and Sophia. Elena's response was measured, professional, revealing nothing of her inner thoughts, as she spoke of her duties and appreciation for the employment opportunity. Behind her carefully constructed answers, Vincent recognized his own tendency to reveal only what was necessary, to keep vulnerabilities hidden beneath layers of practiced control. "I understand you grew up in the foster system," Vincent said, watching her eyes narrow slightly at the personal nature of the question. "Your file mentions your mother passed when you were 10, but there's no information about your father." The subtle shift in her posture, a straightening of the spine, a tightening around the eyes, told Vincent everything about her feelings toward her unknown father. "My mother told me he died before I was born," Elena replied, the slight tremor in her voice betraying the lie she'd been told and had come to believe. Vincent turned to the window, buying precious seconds to compose himself before making a decision that would irrevocably change both their lives. "I knew your mother, Sophia Reyes," he said finally, each word carefully chosen. "We were close, many years ago." The silence stretched between them, Elena's quick intake of breath, the only indication she understood the implication of his words. Her fingers gripped the armrests, knuckles whitening as 18 years of questions suddenly rushed toward a possible answer she hadn't been seeking. "Yesterday, I received an anonymous call informing me that you are my daughter," Vincent continued, turning to face her directly for the first time since dropping this bombshell. "I've confirmed it with DNA testing using your employment health screening. I had no idea you existed until yesterday." Elena's face drained of color, her carefully maintained composure crumbling as she processed his words, emotions flashing across features that mirrored his own, shock, disbelief, anger, and beneath it all, a lifetime of wondering suddenly answered. "That's impossible," she whispered, though her eyes said she already knew it wasn't. Vincent slid a folder across the desk containing birth certificates, DNA results, and photos of Sophia that he'd kept hidden for nearly 2 decades. "Your mother never told me she was pregnant," he explained, the closest he'd come to an apology in years. "She disappeared after we parted ways." Their conversation was interrupted by Marco bursting through the door without knocking, an unprecedented breach of protocol that could only mean serious trouble. "Boss, we've got a problem. Someone just leaked photos of you and Elena to the Calabresi family with claims she's your daughter." Vincent's mind shifted instantly from father to strategist, recognizing that whoever made the anonymous call had just escalated the situation dramatically. "The timing isn't coincidental," he stated coldly, years of survival instinct taking over. "Someone wants to use my daughter as leverage." Elena stood abruptly, nearly toppling the chair behind her, eyes darting between Vincent and his lieutenant, with the wariness of someone who'd learned early that adults were seldom trustworthy. "This is insane. I don't know what game you're playing, but I'm not part of whatever this is," she declared, backing toward the door. Vincent raised a hand, stopping Marco from blocking her exit with a silent command that surprised his second-in-command. The boss never let anyone walk away during crucial conversations. "You're in danger whether you believe me or not," Vincent stated flatly. "The Calabresi family has been looking for leverage against me for years." The mention of danger, rather than the revelation of paternity, finally broke through Elena's shock, her survival instincts visibly kicking in as she assessed the seriousness in both men's expressions. "How would anyone know that we're related, when I didn't even know until 2 minutes ago? The same person who called me yesterday clearly has access to confidential information and wants to create chaos," Vincent explained, mind racing through possibilities. A traitor in his organization, an enemy who'd discovered his past, Or someone from Sophia's life who'd kept this secret for 18 years. Elena's eyes, so like his own, narrowed in calculation as she processed this information with remarkable speed, another inherited trait making itself known. My mother's sister, Aunt Lena, always claimed my father wasn't dead but as good as. She died 3 months ago, but she had a husband who blamed my mother for ruining her life. Vincent's phone chimed with an alert from his security team. A black sedan with tinted windows had been circling the block for the past hour. Calabrese scouts, undoubtedly, moving quickly now that they believed they had identified his weakness. "We need to move you somewhere safe immediately," he said, already texting coded instructions to his most trusted guards. Elena crossed her arms defensively, showing unexpected steel in her response. "I'm not going anywhere with you until you explain exactly what kind of danger we're talking about, who these Calabrese people are, and why finding out you're my biological father puts a target on my back." For the first time in his adult life, Vincent found himself explaining rather than commanding, detailing the decades-long blood feud between his organization and the Calabrese family in terms stripped of criminal implications. "They believe hurting you would hurt me, and they're right," he admitted, the last 3 words surprising even himself. The security alarm pulsed silently on Vincent's phone as Elena processed this information, her expression shifting from disbelief to calculation in a way that reminded him so much of Sophia. It physically hurt. "If what you're saying is true, about being my father, why should I believe you actually care what happens to me after 18 years of nothing?" Vincent reached into his desk drawer, withdrawing a worn photograph he'd kept hidden all these years. Sophia laughing in the sunlight, her head thrown back with joy, taken when they were barely more than teenagers with dreams that had nothing to do with criminal empires. "Because she would never forgive me if I failed to protect you now that I know you exist." His words hung in the air between them, neither admission nor apology, but something raw and honest that seemed to reach Elena in a way nothing else had. "I don't need a father, Mr. Blackwood," she said finally, straightening her shoulders with dignity that belied her 18 years. "But I'm not stupid enough to reject protection if these people really want to hurt me." Vincent nodded once, a decision made as he pressed the intercom. "Secure Protocol Alpha, East Wing, immediate extraction." Within seconds, 4 of his most trusted security personnel appeared, surrounding but not touching Elena as Vincent issued crisp instructions for her relocation to his most secure property upstate. As they prepared to move, Elena turned back with one final question, her voice steady, despite the fear visible in her eyes. "Did you love her? My mother?" The vulnerability in the question pierced Vincent's carefully constructed armor, forcing him to confront emotions buried for nearly 2 decades. Vincent Blackwood, feared across 5 states and respected across continents, found himself unable to lie to this girl who carried his blood and Sophia's spirit. "Yes," he answered simply, "more than the empire I built after losing her." The moment was interrupted by the distinctive crack of gunfire from the street below, the Calabrese family moving faster than anticipated, forcing father and daughter into a dangerous new chapter neither had seen coming. Vincent moved instinctively toward Elena, protection overriding all other considerations as 18 years of absence collapsed into a single, critical moment of choice. The bulletproof SUV sped through Manhattan's streets. Elena pressed against the leather seat as Vincent made calls in a language she didn't recognize. Romanian, she would later learn. Her entire world had collapsed and reconstructed itself in less than an hour. The man beside her simultaneously a stranger and her biological father. Vincent's secluded Catskills compound emerged from dense forest after a 2-hour drive, a modernist structure of glass and concrete that seemed to grow organically from the mountainside. Unlike his penthouse designed to impress business associates, this retreat revealed a different side of Vincent. Bookshelves lined with well-worn classics, a grand piano in the corner, photographs of landscapes rather than people. "Your mother was a concert pianist," Vincent said quietly, as Elena's fingers hovered over the piano keys, the first personal information he'd volunteered since they'd fled the city. "She was performing at a charity event I was forced to attend. I hated classical music until I heard her play Chopin that night." Elena's hands dropped to her sides, this unexpected glimpse into her mother's life more disarming than any revelation about Vincent's criminal empire. "She taught me to play when I was little," she admitted, the first crack in her defensive wall. "But I stopped after she died. The foster families couldn't afford lessons." The DNA results lay spread across the granite kitchen island between them, irrefutable science confirming what their matching eyes and identical expressions of stubbornness already suggested. Elena traced the pattern of genetic markers that connected her to this dangerous man, searching for answers in the scientific data that emotions couldn't provide. Uncle Roberto, my mother's brother-in-law, he always watched me oddly during family gatherings, like he knew something no one else did, Elena said, piecing together childhood memories through this new lens. He disappeared right after Aunt Lena's funeral 3 months ago. Vincent's security chief entered with a tablet displaying surveillance photos of Roberto Diaz entering a known Calabrese establishment 2 weeks prior, the connection finally clear. He waited until your aunt died to use the information she'd kept secret all these years, Vincent explained, rage simmering beneath his controlled exterior. Elena studied her father's face as he reviewed security protocols with his team, recognizing her own expressions mirrored in his features, the slight furrow between eyebrows when concentrating, the way his jaw tightened when concerned. These genetic echoes were more convincing than any DNA test could ever be. Your mother discovered she was pregnant after we ended things, Vincent explained when they were alone again. Medical records from 18 years ago displayed on his tablet. She left the city that same week, leaving no forwarding address. Her sister must have helped her disappear. The timeline aligned perfectly with Elena's birth certificate, her mother's relocation to a small Massachusetts town, the modest life they'd led before cancer took Sophia when Elena was 10. She told me my father died in an accident before I was born, Elena said, the weight of her mother's lie finally settling on her shoulders. Vincent's fingers hovered over a photo of Sophia holding infant Elena, his expression revealing a pain he couldn't articulate. She knew what my life was becoming, what I was becoming, he admitted, offering the closest thing to an explanation he seemed capable of giving. She made the right choice for you. Elena moved to the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching security personnel patrol the perimeter of the property with military precision. These people who are after me, after us, you're not just some wealthy businessman, are you? She asked, already knowing the answer but needing to hear it directly. Vincent crossed the room to stand beside her, their reflections superimposed over the darkening forest beyond the glass. I run an organization that operates outside conventional laws, he stated without embellishment, neither glorifying nor apologizing for the empire he'd built. Some call it organized crime. I call it alternative governance. The revelation should have shocked her, but Elena found herself nodding with strange acceptance, as though some part of her had always known there was something extraordinary about her unknown father. Is that why you never looked for her, for us, after you became powerful? She asked, the question she'd been holding since learning his identity. Vincent turned to face her directly, allowing Elena to see the unguarded truth in eyes identical to her own. I convinced myself she was better without me, that you both were safer if I stayed away. I never knew she was pregnant when she left, but even if I had, I would have made the same choice she did. The morning dawned with Elena finding Vincent in his study reviewing security footage from every angle of the compound. Sleepless and vigilant after intercepted communications confirmed Calabrese foot soldiers were searching the area. Father and daughter circled each other cautiously, connected by blood, but separated by 18 years of absence, and the stark reality of Vincent's dangerous world. Your mother kept journals, Vincent said, sliding a worn leather book across the table during breakfast, its pages filled with Sophia's elegant handwriting. My team recovered them from your apartment while securing your belongings. She wrote to you about me, about why she left. Elena's hands trembled as she opened the journal to a marked page, her mother's voice reaching across time and death. My dearest Elena, if you're reading this, I'm gone and you've somehow found your father, Vincent. I didn't leave because he was a bad man, but because he was becoming someone I couldn't follow, and I had to protect you both from the consequences of his choices. The pages revealed a love story Elena had never imagined. Her mother, a talented musician from a respectable family, falling for the ambitious son of immigrants who promised to build an empire worthy of her. Sophia had seen the dangerous path Vincent was choosing, but loved him despite it, leaving only when she discovered she was carrying his child. She never wanted me to find you, Vincent acknowledged, after Elena had read through tear-blurred eyes. But she also didn't want you to hate me. She was extraordinary that way, finding compassion where others couldn't. Elena closed the journal, conflicting emotions battling across her face as she processed 18 years of half-truths. She wrote that she planned to tell me everything when I turned 18. She just didn't live long enough to keep that promise. Vincent's security chief interrupted with urgent news. Roberto Diaz had been located in a Calabrese safe house across the state line. Interrogation revealing he'd sold information about Elena to multiple interested parties after discovering Sophia's hidden documents. The situation had escalated beyond a simple family secret into a potential war between criminal organizations. What happens now? Elena asked, the reality of her situation sinking in as she watched armed guards reinforcing perimeter security. I can't just go back to being a maid or pretend none of this is happening. People are trying to kill me because of who you are. Vincent studied his daughter's face, seeing Sophia's strength reflected in her determined expression, despite the fear she couldn't fully hide. You have options that don't include this life, he said, surprising himself with the offer. I can create a new identity for you, somewhere the Calabrese could never find you. Elena's laugh held no humor, just bitter acknowledgement of her reality. You mean disappear, like Mom did? Start over as someone else? Always looking over my shoulder, wondering if today's the day my past catches up with me? The truth hung between them. Elena was a Blackwood, regardless of what name she carried, and her father's enemies would never stop hunting for such valuable leverage. Roberto told the Calabrese family, I'm your weakness, she stated flatly, meeting Vincent's gaze without flinching. And they believe it because it's true, isn't it? Vincent's silence was answer enough, his expression revealing what his criminal associates had never seen. Vulnerability. I've spent my life eliminating weaknesses, he finally admitted. But I can't eliminate you, even though that would be the logical solution. Elena moved to the window, tracking the movement of guards through the trees, her reflection showing a young woman standing straighter than she had the day before. Teach me, she said suddenly, turning to face the father she'd only just met. If I'm going to be a target for the rest of my life, I want to know how to fight back. The request stunned Vincent into momentary silence, parental protection warring with grudging respect for her pragmatism. Learning what I know isn't just about self-defense, he warned. It changes you, reshapes how you see the world and your place in it. There's no going back. Elena's smile held a shadow of her mother's determination, but with an edge Sophia had never possessed. I think we both know I stopped being just an orphaned maid the moment you confirmed I'm your daughter. I didn't choose this life, but I'm choosing how I respond to it. The Calabrese family made their first serious move 3 days later, a sophisticated cyber attack targeting Vincent's financial networks, followed by coordinated strikes against 2 of his legitimate businesses in Manhattan. The message was clear: surrender Elena, or watch his empire crumble piece by piece. Vincent stood in his command center buried beneath the Catskills compound, multiple screens displaying the damage reports, while Elena watched from the doorway, witnessing firsthand the scope of her father's organization. They're testing your defenses, she observed with unexpected insight, seeing how far you'll go to protect me. Marco approached with tablet in hand, displaying surveillance photos of Salvatore Calabrese himself, arriving at his family's Hudson Valley estate, an unprecedented move that signaled the seriousness of their intentions. The old man never leaves Boston unless blood is about to be spilled, Marco explained, concern evident beneath his professional demeanor. Vincent dismissed his lieutenants with a gesture, waiting until the room cleared before addressing his daughter. The Calabreses believe that because you're a civilian, innocent of my world, I'll sacrifice my business interests to keep you safe, he explained, studying her reaction carefully. They don't understand that Blackwoods protect their own, regardless of the cost. Elena absorbed his words, recognizing the implicit acknowledgement that he now considered her truly family, not just a biological connection or liability. These men targeting us, what would they do if they captured me? She asked directly, refusing the comfort of pleasant lies. Vincent's expression hardened, unwilling to shield her from the brutal reality of the situation. They would use you against me in whatever way proved most effective. Physical harm, psychological torture, manipulation, until I gave them what they want. Control of my territory, and operations. The stark assessment hung in the air between them, father and daughter united in their unflinching acceptance of the danger. Then we need to change the equation, Elena suggested, approaching the tactical display with newfound determination. If I'm no longer just your weakness, but also your strength, their entire strategy falls apart. Vincent raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite himself by her reasoning. Explain, he commanded, the business tone slipping into his voice automatically before softening as he added, please. Elena gestured to the organizational chart displayed on the main screen, quickly grasping the hierarchy of Vincent's empire. They expect you to hide me away while they dismantle everything you've built. What if instead, you introduce me publicly as your heir and successor? The audacity of her suggestion stunned even Vincent, who had built his reputation on bold, unexpected moves that kept his enemies perpetually off balance. That would paint an even larger target on your back, he pointed out, though his tactical mind was already calculating the potential advantages of such a shocking announcement. Elena's smile held a coldness that reminded Vincent uncomfortably of himself at her age. But it would change the narrative completely. I'm no longer just your vulnerability, but your strategic asset, publicly acknowledged, and therefore impossible to eliminate quietly, without starting an all-out war no one wants. Vincent studied his daughter with new appreciation, recognizing not just Sophia's beauty, but his own strategic brilliance reflected back at him. The Calabresi's won't believe it's genuine. They'll see it as a desperate ploy, he countered, testing her reasoning rather than dismissing it outright. Elena moved to the digital map displaying territory boundaries throughout the northeast, her finger tracing the contested areas where Calabresi and Blackwood interests overlapped. Then make them believe it. Give me actual authority over something valuable, something they want, with your very public backing. Vincent's phone chimed with an encrypted message from his source inside Calabresi's organization. The old man had placed a $5 million bounty on Elena, dead or alive. We have 24 hours before every hired gun on the East Coast starts hunting for you, he informed her, decision crystallizing as he watched fear flicker across her face, immediately replaced by determination. The plan came together with military precision, security protocols established, loyal members informed, a carefully orchestrated public appearance scheduled for the following evening at Vincent's most exclusive Manhattan club. Elena would step into the spotlight not as a victim to be protected, but as the newly discovered Blackwood heir, changing the rules of engagement overnight. As dawn broke over the mountains, Vincent found Elena in Sophia's reading room, surrounded by journals that chronicled the life she should have shared with both parents. "Are you certain you want this?" he asked quietly, offering one last chance to choose a different path. "Once we announce you as my daughter and heir, there's no going back to anonymity. Ever." Elena stood before the mirror in what had once been her mother's closet, now filled with designer clothing rushed in overnight by Vincent's staff. The transformation from maid to Mafia princess was made manifest in Armani and Louboutin, a metamorphosis as sudden as the revelation of her parentage. "I choose this," she answered firmly, meeting her father's reflection behind her. "I choose to face what's coming rather than spend my life running from it." Vincent nodded once, approval and concern warring in his expression as he handed her a small velvet box. Inside lay Sophia's diamond pendant, the only gift she had kept after leaving him 18 years ago. "Your mother wore this the night we met," he explained, fastening the necklace around Elena's throat. "It should have been yours all along." The helicopter journey into Manhattan unfolded in tense silence, the city lights glittering below like the empire Vincent had built. Elena absorbed his briefing on key players she would meet that evening with remarkable focus. Vincent's club, Sovereignty, occupied the top 3 floors of a midtown building he owned outright. Its exclusive clientele represented the intersection of legitimate power and shadow authority in New York City. Elena felt eyes tracking her entrance, whispers following in her wake as Vincent guided her through the crowd. His protective hand hovered near her back, not touching, but close enough to intervene if necessary. "Remember what I told you," Vincent murmured as they approached his private table overlooking the dance floor. "Stand tall, make direct eye contact, speak only when necessary, and never apologize for anything." The assembled lieutenants rose as Vincent approached, their curious gazes sliding from him to Elena. Some showed surprise, others calculation, and a few displayed poorly disguised hostility at this sudden change in hierarchy. "Gentlemen," Vincent announced with deceptive casualness, "allow me to introduce my daughter and heir, Elena Blackwood, Sophia's child." A ripple of shocked murmurs spread through the gathering, Marco stepping forward first to kiss Elena's hand. "Your mother was a remarkable woman," he said with unexpected gentleness. "Vincent was never the same after she left." The others followed Marco's lead, falling into line behind Vincent's declaration with varying degrees of sincerity. Across the room, Elena noticed a distinguished older man watching their tableau with undisguised interest. Salvatore Calabresi himself. "You carry yourself like your father," observed Dominic, Vincent's financial strategist. "The same watchfulness, the same way of measuring each word before speaking. It's uncanny." Vincent surveyed the room from his position at Elena's side, noting the placement of Calabresi's men. "You've managed something remarkable tonight," he acknowledged quietly. "You've made them believe this isn't just strategy. They see you as a true Blackwood, The evening progressed like an elaborate chess match, Elena proving her natural aptitude for Vincent's world. She navigated conversations with political figures, legitimate business partners, and criminal associates with equal poise. The carefully choreographed encounter with Calabrese ended in a stalemate of polite threats and veiled promises. Both patriarchs retreated to neutral corners, while their subordinates circled each other warily. 3 weeks passed in a whirlwind of education, Vincent transforming Elena from civilian to confidant. He taught her the intricacies of his operation, from financial structures to security protocols, with methodical precision. "Your mother would be horrified," Vincent admitted during a rare, quiet moment in his study. "She left to keep you from becoming what I am, what you're becoming now." Elena looked up from the documents spread across his desk, her expression a complex blend of determination and vulnerability. "Mom protected me from your world until she couldn't anymore, but she also made sure I could protect myself when the time came." The fragile peace shattered on a rainy Tuesday afternoon when Elena's security detail was ambushed. What should have been a routine visit to Vincent's downtown office turned into a professional strike that left 3 guards dead and Elena missing. Vincent received the video 30 minutes later, Elena bound to a chair in an undisclosed location. A masked figure delivered terms for her safe return: surrender the entire operation or watch his newly discovered daughter die slowly on live stream. "This isn't Calabrese," Marco insisted, as Vincent's technical team worked to trace the video's origin. "Too sloppy, too public. Salvatore would never break protocol this way, not when negotiations were proceeding." Vincent studied the footage frame by frame, noticing details others missed. Elena's eyes blinking in a pattern he recognized from their security briefings. Her bound hands were positioned in a way that communicated specific information to those who knew how to interpret it. Elena's hastily learned code revealed more than just her location. She had identified at least one of her captors as formerly employed by the Calabrese family. This crucial detail suggested a rogue operation rather than a sanctioned move, explaining why the kidnapping violated established underworld protocols. What Roberto failed to realize was that Elena had inherited more than just Vincent's features. She possessed his strategic mind and iron will. Throughout her captivity, she had been systematically cataloging every sound, every glimpse of her surroundings, building a mental map that she now transmitted through subtle movements. Vincent recognized something in his daughter that he'd rarely seen in his most hardened associates: a preternatural calm in the face of mortal danger. Where others would have broken under the pressure, Elena had transformed her fear into a tactical advantage, buying time while gathering intelligence. "It's Roberto," Vincent concluded, identifying the mastermind behind Elena's kidnapping. "He's playing both sides, selling information to Calabrese while executing his own revenge plan against me for Sophia's sake." The rescue operation assembled with military precision. Vincent's elite security team, supplemented by specialists, brought in from his international connections. The abandoned textile factory on Staten Island matched the environmental clues Elena had communicated through her coded signals. Vincent insisted on leading the assault himself, surprising his lieutenants who had never seen him personally engage in tactical operations. "She is my daughter," he stated simply, checking his weapon with practiced efficiency. "If this goes wrong, I will be the one to face her." Elena had not remained passive during her captivity, working methodically to loosen her restraints while engaging her captor. "You never forgave my mother for choosing Vincent over your brother," she stated calmly as Roberto paced before her. "This isn't about business. It's about your personal vendetta." Roberto's composure cracked at Elena's psychological probing, his decades-old resentment spilling forth. "Your mother destroyed our family when she fell for that criminal," he spat, gesturing wildly with his weapon. "My brother died waiting for her to come back." The rescue team breached the perimeter with synchronized precision, neutralizing the hired security with non-lethal efficiency. Vincent moved directly toward the central office where Elena was being held, hearing Roberto's increasingly unhinged monologue through his tactical earpiece. Vincent entered the room silently, as Roberto turned his back on Elena, finding his daughter meeting his gaze with remarkable composure. Their silent communication, a lifetime of shared instinct compressed into 3 weeks of connection, allowed them to coordinate without words. The revelation of Roberto's treachery created an unexpected opportunity for alliance between the Blackwood and Calabrese organizations. Salvatore himself reached out to acknowledge the violation of established protocols and offered a formal meeting. Elena's kidnapping and successful rescue transformed her status within Vincent's organization. Her quick thinking and natural aptitude for crisis management earned genuine respect from even the most skeptical lieutenants. The summit between families took place on neutral territory, a private dining room at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Vincent and Salvatore arrived with minimal security, each accompanied by their most trusted advisor, and, in Vincent's case, Elena herself. "My granddaughter speaks highly of your daughter," Salvatore remarked, as preliminary discussions established the framework for a lasting peace. "Isabella noticed her composure at your club that night, said she carried herself with unusual dignity." Vincent's surprise must have shown briefly on his face, because Salvatore smiled with unexpected warmth. "You thought I came to your territory to threaten you? I came to see this remarkable daughter everyone was whispering about." The negotiation proceeded with surprising collegiality, both patriarchs recognizing the potential benefits of collaboration over conflict. External threats from international organizations pressed upon their traditional territories, creating common ground. Elena contributed to the discussion with insightful observations about modernizing certain aspects of both family operations. Her background in technology revealed opportunities neither patriarch had fully recognized. Her proposed digital currency exchange would allow both families to launder proceeds with unprecedented efficiency, while simultaneously positioning them as legitimate pioneers in financial technology. The brilliance lay in its duality, a system both perfectly legal on its surface and infinitely adaptable to their shadow requirements. Isabella Calabresi, Salvatore's granddaughter who had been groomed for leadership since childhood, found herself unexpectedly aligned with Elena's vision. The two women exchanged knowing glances across the negotiating table, silently acknowledging that their generation might forge connections their fathers never could. Vincent observed this unspoken female alliance with private satisfaction, recognizing a potential partnership that transcended the old blood feuds. Elena had accomplished in weeks what he couldn't achieve in decades, creating a path toward legitimate power that wouldn't require constant vigilance against assassination attempts. "Your daughter has vision," Salvatore commented to Vincent as they concluded the preliminary agreement. "Sophia would be proud of the woman she's become, despite the path that brought her here. Perhaps because of it." The mention of Sophia's name no longer pierced Vincent with regret, but instead filled him with quiet gratitude. Elena carried her mother's compassion alongside his own determination, a powerful combination neither had anticipated. The formal alliance was sealed through Vincent's unprecedented decision to establish a charitable foundation in Sophia's name. Dedicated to supporting children in the foster system, it would be administered jointly by both families, with Elena serving as executive director. "Some will see this as weakness," Marco warned privately as they left the museum. "Compassion has never been the currency of our world. They'll test this new arrangement, push to see where the true boundaries lie." Vincent watched Elena walking slightly ahead of them, her confident stride revealing nothing of the trauma she'd experienced. "Let them test us," he replied with quiet certainty. "They'll find the boundaries exactly where we place them." The transformation of Vincent's organization occurred gradually over the following months. Elena's influence softened some of the harsher aspects of his operation, while reinforcing others with innovative approaches to security and territorial management. "I found these in Mom's things," Elena said one evening, presenting Vincent with architectural drawings. "She never stopped creating beauty, even knowing what darkness existed in the world. I think that's what made her extraordinary." Vincent studied the detailed plans, recognizing Sophia's distinctive aesthetic in every element of the design. "We'll build it," he decided immediately. Exactly as she envisioned, in the location she chose. The groundbreaking ceremony 6 months later marked a public turning point for the Blackwood family. What the public didn't know was that it also commemorated the complete restructuring of Vincent's empire into legitimate businesses, guided by Elena's vision. Thank you all for following this story. If you're enjoying it, write in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video, as your support is important for me to continue creating content here. Chapter 1. The Burning. The smell hit me first, acrid smoke and burning rubber cutting through the cold November air. I was 3 blocks from the hospital, my 12-hour shift finally over, when I heard the explosion. My nurse's instincts kicked in before my brain could catch up. I ran toward the sound, my sneakers slapping against wet pavement, my scrubs still stained with the night's emergencies. Other people were running away, their faces painted with fear and the orange glow of flames. The black SUV was engulfed, fire licking up from the front end where it had collided with a light post. The driver's side door hung open, and I could see a man slumped over the wheel, blood streaming down his face. But it was the sound that stopped my heart, a child's scream, piercing and terrified, coming from the back seat. I didn't think. I never do in emergencies. That's what makes me good at my job and reckless with my life. The rear door was jammed. I could see him through the window, a little boy, maybe 3 years old, strapped into a car seat, his face contorted with fear. Flames were creeping along the undercarriage, and I knew we had seconds, not minutes. "Hold on, baby," I shouted, though I doubted he could hear me over his own screaming. I grabbed a rock from the street and smashed the window. Glass rained down, and I reached through, my arms screaming as I stretched for the car seat buckle. The heat was intense, singing the hair on my arms. My fingers fumbled with the mechanism. Why were these things always so complicated in emergencies? The buckle released. I pulled the boy through the window just as the flames reached the back seat. We tumbled onto the pavement together, and I rolled us away from the vehicle, covering his small body with mine. 10 seconds later, the gas tank exploded. The blast wave knocked the air from my lungs. My ears rang. The boy was crying against my chest, his fists clutching my scrub top. I held him tight, doing a rapid assessment, through my shaking hands. No burns, no obvious injuries. Miracle. "You're okay," I whispered into his dark curls. "You're safe now." That's when I heard the footsteps, not running, not panicked, but purposeful and measured. I looked up to see men in dark suits surrounding us, at least a dozen of them, appearing from nowhere like shadows gaining form. And then I saw him. He moved through the circle of men like a knife through water, parting them with his mere presence. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a perfectly tailored black suit that probably cost more than my car. His face was all sharp angles and controlled fury, with eyes so dark they looked black in the firelight. A thin scar ran along his left jawline, somehow making him more devastating rather than less. He stopped 3 feet away, staring at the boy in my arms with an expression I couldn't read, rage and relief warring beneath an iron mask of control. "Luca," he said, his voice low and rough like gravel wrapped in silk. The boy's head whipped up. "Papa." He launched himself from my arms into the man's, and I watched those powerful arms close around the child with surprising gentleness. The man's eyes closed for just a moment, and I saw something crack in that impenetrable facade, pure, raw fear. Then his eyes opened and locked on mine. I'd never been looked at like that before. It wasn't gratitude. It was something more intense, more possessive. He stared at me like he was memorizing every detail of my face, filing me away in some mental database. "Who are you?" His accent was slight, Italian maybe, giving his words an almost lyrical quality that didn't match the steel in his tone. Emma Foster. I'm a nurse at County General. I heard him screaming and You pulled him out." It wasn't a question. Yes. The door was jammed. I broke the window. His eyes traveled down to my arms, which I now realized were bleeding from a dozen glass cuts. "You're injured. It's nothing. Is he okay? I should check him over properly. And your driver?" "My driver is dead." He said it flatly, without emotion. "Marco will handle it." One of the suited men nodded and moved toward the burning wreckage. I opened my mouth to protest. There could be evidence. The police would need to investigate. But the words died in my throat at his expression. "You saved my son's life." He shifted Luca to one hip, and with his free hand, he reached out and grasped my wrist. His grip was firm, almost painfully so, his fingers wrapping completely around my slender wrist. "That means you're mine now." "What?" "You don't walk away from this. From him. From me." His thumb pressed against my racing pulse. "You understand?" I don't understand anything. I just did what anyone would." "No." He cut me off, his voice deadly quiet. "No one else ran toward that car. I was watching. Dozens of people, and only you ran toward danger to save a child who wasn't yours. That makes you rare. That makes you valuable." Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. His jaw tightened. "Boss, we need to move," one of the men said urgently. He ignored him, still staring at me with those fathomless eyes. "What's your full name?" "Emma Rose Foster." "Why, where do you live?" "I'm not telling you that." A slight curve touched his lips, not quite a smile. More like the ghost of one. "I'll know within the hour anyway." "Marco." The man who'd moved toward the car turned back. "Find out everything about Emma Rose Foster. Where she lives, where she works, who she loves. who she owes, what she fears. Everything. Horror crawled up my spine. You can't just... I can. He finally released my wrist and reached into his jacket. For one terrible moment, I thought he was going for a gun. Instead, he pulled out a business card and pressed it into my palm. You're in shock. When it wears off, you'll have questions. Call this number. You don't have a choice anymore, Emma, he said. My name like he was tasting it, like he owned it now. You entered my world the moment you touched my son. There's no going back. He turned and walked away, Luca's face buried in his neck. The circle of men closed around them, and they disappeared into the darkness between buildings like they'd never been there at all. I stood there, trembling, holding a business card that simply read D. Moretti, and a phone number. No title, no company, just a name that sent ice water through my veins because I'd heard it before. Everyone in the city had heard it before. Dante Moretti, the devil of the 5 families. The man who controlled half the city's underground and had politicians in his pocket. The Mafia boss whose enemies disappeared without a trace, and whose word was law in the shadows where normal people feared to tread. And I'd just saved his son. The police arrived seconds later, their cars screeching to a halt. An officer approached me, but I barely heard his questions. I was staring at the place where Dante Moretti had vanished, my wrist still burning where he'd held it, his words echoing in my head. You're mine now. What had I done? Chapter 2. The Watching. 3 days passed, and I tried to convince myself it was over. I went to work. I smiled at patients. I pretended the burns on my arms were from a kitchen accident and not from pulling a Mafia boss's son from a burning car. I threw away the business card without calling it, but I felt eyes on me everywhere. At the hospital, a man in a dark suit sat in the waiting room for hours, watching. He never checked in, never asked for help, just watched. When my shift ended, he was gone. At the grocery store, a different man. Same suit, same watchful presence. He pretended to shop, but his cart remained empty, and his eyes followed me through the aisles. Outside my apartment building, a black sedan with tinted windows. Always there when I came home. Always gone by morning. I told myself I was being paranoid. The police had questioned me about the accident, and I'd told them the truth that I'd pulled a child from the burning SUV and nothing more. They'd seemed satisfied. Case closed. But the watching didn't stop. On the 4th day, I arrived home from a night shift to find my apartment door slightly ajar. My heart stuttered. I kept a can of pepper spray in my purse. Lot of good it would do against whoever had broken into my home, and I pulled it out with shaking hands. I should call the police. I should run. Instead, I pushed the door open. My apartment was exactly as I'd left it, cluttered with medical textbooks. Yesterday's coffee cup in the sink. My scrubs draped over the couch. Nothing disturbed, nothing stolen, except for the manila envelope on my kitchen table. I approached it like it might explode. No return address, no name. Just thick, expensive paper sealed with what looked like a wax stamp bearing an ornate M. I opened it. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. Me leaving the hospital. Me at the grocery store. Me jogging in the park last Sunday. Me through my apartment window, brushing my teeth before bed. My stomach turned. Beneath the photos was a single sheet of paper with elegant, masculine handwriting. You have not called. This disappoints me. Your safety is compromised by your stubbornness. There are those who would hurt you to hurt me. Come to the address below tonight at 8. Do not be late. Do not bring police. Do not make me come to you. D.M. An address in the Diamond District, the wealthiest part of the city, where old money lived behind iron gates and security cameras. I should have been terrified. I was terrified. But underneath the fear was something else, anger. How dare he have me followed? How dare he invade my privacy like this? I'd saved his son's life, and this was how he repaid me? I grabbed my phone and dialed the number on the business card I'd fished out of the trash days ago. He answered on the first ring. Emma. That voice, dark and smooth. He'd been expecting my call. You received my message. You had me followed. You broke into my home. I protected you. There's a difference. I don't need your protection. I don't need anything from you. Silence. Then, quieter, almost gentle. Yes, you do. You just don't know it yet. I'm calling the police. No, you're not. He didn't sound concerned, just certain. If you wanted to involve the police, you would have done it days ago. You haven't because you're intelligent enough to understand that normal rules don't apply here. Not anymore. What do you want from me? To keep you alive. His tone shifted, losing some of its careful control. You think I'm your enemy, but I'm not. The moment you pulled Luca from that car, you became visible to people who would use you against me. Do you understand? That explosion wasn't an accident. Someone tried to kill my son. Now they know a woman risked her life to save him. They'll wonder why. They'll wonder if you mean something to me. But I don't. It doesn't matter what's true. It matters what they believe. A pause. Come to the address tonight. I'll explain everything. You'll be safe. Safe? With you? Safer than anywhere else. Something shifted in his voice, a note of dark amusement. I'm many things, Emma, but I don't hurt the people who save my son. Quite the opposite. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, my hands shaking. Every rational part of my brain screamed at me to run, pack a bag, leave the city, disappear. But Dante Moretti had found me in 3 days. If I ran, he'd find me again. And if what he said was true, if there really were people who would use me to hurt him. I looked at the photos spread across my table. In every single one, I was alone, vulnerable, unprotected. At 7:30, I got dressed. Not my scrubs this time, but jeans and a sweater, my most practical boots. I braided my hair back tightly and left my jewelry in the drawer. If I was walking into a lion's den, I'd do it ready to fight or run. The address led me to a mansion that looked like it belonged in a European fairy tale, all stone walls and iron gates, with gardens that probably required a full-time staff. The gate swung open as I approached, as if they'd been watching for me. They had been, of course. Cameras everywhere, and men in suits stationed at intervals along the driveway. I counted 8 before I stopped counting. The front door opened before I could knock. An older woman with steel-gray hair and kind eyes smiled at me. Miss Foster, we've been expecting you. This way, please. She led me through a foyer that could swallow my entire apartment, past rooms filled with art that probably cost more than I'd make in a lifetime, and finally to a set of double doors carved with intricate designs. She knocked once, then opened the door. Miss Foster, sir. I stepped into a study that smelled of leather and wood smoke, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a fireplace where flames danced, and behind an enormous desk, Dante Moretti. He stood as I entered, and I realized for the first time just how tall he was, easily over 6 feet, with the kind of build that came from real work, not just a gym. His suit was different from the night of the fire, charcoal gray this time, but just as perfectly tailored. His dark hair was slightly mussed, and I wondered if he'd been running his hands through it. You came. He sounded genuinely surprised, almost. Pleased? You didn't give me much choice. There's always a choice. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. Sit, please. I remained standing. You said you'd explain. A slight smile touched his lips, the same ghost of one I'd seen before. You're afraid of me, but you won't show it. I like that. I'm not afraid of you. Liar. He moved around the desk with that predatory grace, stopping just close enough to make my heart race. You're terrified. Your pulse is elevated. You're breathing shallow. But you came. Anyway, because you're brave. Foolishly brave. What? Do you want? To offer you a job. That was not what I'd expected. But, a job? Luca needs a nanny. Someone with medical training. Someone quick thinking in emergencies. Someone who would run into fire to save him. His eyes never left mine. You're perfect for it. I have a job. You're overworked and underpaid at that hospital. I'm offering triple your current salary, full room and board here in the mansion, and complete security. You'd be safe, Emma. Completely safe. As your prisoner? As my employee. He moved closer. Close enough that I could smell his cologne, something expensive and dark. And as Luca's guardian, he's been asking about you. The woman with gentle hands who pulled him from the fire. He wants to thank you properly. My resolve cracked slightly. He's okay? Physically, yes. Emotionally? Dante's jaw tightened. He has nightmares. He wakes up screaming about fire and smoke. The nanny we had quit, she wasn't equipped to handle trauma. But you. His eyes searched mine. You understand trauma. I've read your file, Emma. I know what happened to your sister. Cold fury flooded through me. How dare you? I told you I'd learn everything. His voice was gentler now, almost apologetic. I know Sarah died in a house fire when you were 17. I know you tried to save her but couldn't get past the flames. I know that's why you became a nurse, why you work so hard, why you ran toward that burning car when everyone else ran away." He paused. "I know you're still trying to save her." Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "You don't know anything about me." "I know enough." He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and caught a tear that had escaped down my cheek. His thumb was surprisingly gentle. "I know you're haunted by what you couldn't do. Let me give you a chance to do what you couldn't before. Save Luca. Save him from the nightmares, from the fear. You've already saved his life. Now save his ability to live it." It was manipulation, and I knew it. Using my pain, my guilt, my desperate need to protect children because I couldn't protect my sister. It was cruel and calculated and exactly the right thing to say to make me consider his offer. 1 month, I heard myself say. Trial period. If it doesn't work out, I walk away. Deal. He held out his hand. I looked at it strong, scarred, dangerous. The hand of a man who'd probably ordered deaths, who lived outside the law, who was offering me salvation and damnation in the same breath. I shook it. His fingers closed around mine, and this time his grip was gentle, almost reverent. "You won't regret this." But I already did. Chapter 3. The Settling. I moved into the Moretti mansion the next day. My room was bigger than my entire apartment, all cream walls and soft lighting, with a bed that could fit 4 people and a bathroom that looked like something from a luxury hotel. There was a sitting area by the window, a walk-in closet already stocked with clothes in exactly my size, and fresh flowers on the dresser. "If you need anything, just ask." The housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, told me with that same kind smile. "Mr. Moretti wants you to be comfortable." Comfortable. Right. As comfortable as anyone could be, living in a gilded cage with a man who probably had blood on his hands. I met Luca again that afternoon. He was in the nursery, though. Calling it a nursery was like calling the Sistine Chapel a church. It was a wonderland of toys, books, and educational equipment that must have cost a fortune. But Luca sat in the corner with a single stuffed lion, watching the door with wary eyes. When he saw me, his face lit up. "Angel lady." I knelt down to his level. "Hi, sweetheart. Remember me?" He nodded vigorously and threw his small arms around my neck. "You saved me from the fire. Papa said you're gonna stay now." "For a little while, yes." I hugged him back, feeling something in my chest crack open. He was so small, so fragile, and he'd been through something no child should experience. "How are you feeling?" "Okay." But his grip on my neck tightened. "I have bad dreams sometimes." "That's normal after something scary happens. Do you want to tell me about them?" He pulled back and shook his head, his dark eyes so like his father's filling with tears. "Fire comes back, and Papa can't find me." "Oh, honey." I brushed his dark curls back from his forehead. "The fire is gone now, and your Papa is right here. You're safe." "You promise?" I shouldn't promise. I didn't know if he was safe. I didn't know anything about this world I'd stumbled into, but looking into those trusting eyes, I couldn't help myself. "I promise." We spent the afternoon playing, reading books, and getting to know each other. Luca was bright, curious, and starved for gentle affection. He showed me his favorite toys, told me stories in the rambling way 3-year-olds do, and held my hand like I might disappear if he let go. When dinner time approached, he grabbed my hand tighter. "Will you eat with me and Papa? I don't think. Please? Papa eats alone lots. He's lonely." Somehow I doubted Dante Moretti was ever truly alone, but I nodded. "Okay, but just tonight." Luca led me through the mansion to a private dining room I hadn't seen yet. It was intimate compared to the formal dining room I'd glimpsed earlier, a table for 6, warm lighting, and windows overlooking the gardens. Dante was already there, standing by the window with a glass of what looked like whiskey. He'd shed his suit jacket and rolled up his shirt sleeves, revealing powerful forearms marked with more scars. When he turned and saw us, his expression softened in a way I hadn't seen before. "Papa, Emma's eating with us." "I see that." His eyes met mine over Luca's head. "Thank you." The dinner was surprisingly normal. Luca chattered between us, telling his father about our afternoon in exhaustive detail. Dante listened with complete attention, asking questions, laughing at Luca's jokes, being nothing like the cold, commanding man I'd met before. This was a father. Just a father, loving his son. It made him more dangerous somehow. Easier to hate a monster than a man who clearly adored his child. Emma. Dante's voice pulled me from my thoughts. Luca should be in bed soon. Will you handle bedtime? Of course. Good. He stood, and I realized he was leaving. I have business to attend to. I'll be in my study if you need anything. Business. Right. The kind of business that required armed guards and happened after dark. I pushed the thought away and focused on Luca, getting him bathed and into his dinosaur pajamas. We read 3 bedtime stories, his choice, and I stayed with him until his breathing evened out into sleep. When I finally left his room, I found one of Dante's men waiting in the hallway. Mr. Moretti would like to see you in his study. My stomach tightened. Now? If you're not too tired. I was exhausted, but I nodded and followed him through the quiet mansion. Most of the staff had retired for the night, leaving just the security guards stationed at intervals. The study door was ajar, and I could see Dante at his desk, reviewing papers by lamplight. The guard knocked. Miss Foster, sir. Come in, Emma. Close the door. I did, suddenly very aware that we were alone. Truly alone for the first time since that night at the fire. Dante set down his papers and studied me with those penetrating eyes. How is he? Asleep. He went down easily tonight, but he asked me to leave the nightlight on and the door cracked. He never used to need that. Pain flickered across Dante's face. Before the attack, he'd sleep through anything. It'll get better with time. Trauma healing isn't linear, but children are remarkably resilient. Are they? He stood and moved to the window, his back to me. Or do we just tell ourselves that so we can sleep at night? There was something raw in his voice, something wounded. This wasn't the Mafia boss. This was just a father, terrified for his son. Mr. Moretti, Dante. He turned back to me. Call me Dante. You're not my employee, Emma. You're something else. What am I? He crossed the distance between us in 3 strides, stopping close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. You're the woman who saved my son. The woman who came back even though you were afraid. The woman who made him smile today for the first time since the fire. His hand rose, and this time I didn't flinch away as he tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. You're someone I need to keep safe. From what? From the people who want to destroy me. His fingers lingered at my neck, barely touching. I have enemies, Emma. Powerful ones. They'll use anyone close to me as a weapon. That's why I can't let you leave. So I am a prisoner. You're protected. His thumb traced my jawline with devastating gentleness. There's a difference. It doesn't feel different. It will. He dropped his hand and stepped back, and I could breathe again. Get some rest. Tomorrow I'll show you the security protocols. You'll need to learn them if you're going to stay here safely. I nodded and turned to leave, but his voice stopped me at the door. Emma? Yes. Thank you. For being here. For helping him. For... He paused, searching for words. For not running when you had the chance. I looked back at him, this dangerous, damaged man, who loved his son enough to cage a stranger to keep her safe. I'm still thinking about running. A real smile touched his lips this time, transforming his face. I know. That's what makes you interesting. I left before I could say something stupid, my heart pounding and my mind racing. I was in so much deeper than I'd realized. This wasn't just about keeping Luca safe. This was about something more complicated, more dangerous. This was about the way Dante looked at me like I was a puzzle he needed to solve, the way his touch made my skin burn, the way some broken part of me recognized something broken in him. I was in trouble, and I had no idea how to get out. Chapter 4, The Routine. 2 weeks passed, and I fell into a rhythm I hadn't expected, one that felt dangerously close to normal. My days revolved around Luca. We'd wake early, have breakfast in the nursery, then spend mornings on educational activities. He was smart as a whip, already learning to read simple words and count to 50. Afternoons were for playbuilding elaborate block towers, painting messy masterpieces, or exploring the mansion's extensive gardens under the watchful eyes of security. His nightmares were getting better, slowly. He only woke up screaming twice that first week, then once the second. Each time, I was there within seconds, holding him until the terror passed. And each time, Dante appeared minutes later, his hair mussed from sleep, wearing nothing but pajama pants that sat low on his hips and revealed a body that made my mouth go dry. He'd stand in the doorway, watching me comfort his son, something unreadable in his dark eyes. "You're good with him," he'd said on the third night, his voice rough with sleep. "He makes it easy." "No, you make it look easy. There's a difference." He'd moved closer, crouching beside the bed where I sat with Luca curled against me. "He trusts you completely already. Do you know how rare that is?" I'd looked down at the sleeping child. "He needs stability, safety, someone who won't leave him." "And you won't?" The question had hung between us, loaded with meaning I wasn't ready to examine. "Not while he needs me. What about after?" I hadn't answered, couldn't answer, because the truth was becoming increasingly complicated. The mansion stopped feeling like a prison and started feeling like something more dangerous, like home. Mrs. Chen treated me like family, always making sure my favorite foods appeared at meals. The guards nodded respectfully when I passed, no longer watching me like a threat. Even Marco, Dante's right-hand man, had warmed to me after I'd stitched up a cut on his hand when the doctor couldn't arrive quickly enough. "You've got good hands," he'd said, watching me work with professional efficiency. "Boss made the right call bringing you here." But it was the evenings that were most dangerous. After Luca went to bed, Dante would appear sometimes in his study, sometimes in the library, once in the kitchen at midnight when neither of us could sleep. We'd talk about everything and nothing, about Luca's progress, about the books we'd read, about places we'd traveled, dreams we'd had before life got complicated. He never talked about his work, and I never asked. That was the unspoken rule between us, the line we didn't cross. Until the night everything changed. It was Thursday, exactly 16 days after I'd moved in. I was in the library, curled up in my favorite chair with a medical journal, when Dante entered. He looked different, tense, angry, his jaw tight and his movements sharp. "You should go to your room." His voice was clipped. "Lock the door. Don't come out until morning." I set down my journal. "What's wrong?" "Nothing that concerns you." "Dante." I said go. He snapped it, and I flinched despite myself. This was the man from the fire, the cold Mafia boss, not the gentle father I'd been getting to know. I stood, but I didn't leave. "Is Luca safe?" "He's always safe. That's not—" He cut himself off, running a hand through his hair. "Just go, Emma. Please." The please did it. I'd never heard him say it like that, like he was begging. I went, but I didn't lock my door. And when I heard the shouting start an hour later, I crept into the hallway. Voices echoed from Dante's study, his and at least two others, all speaking rapid Italian. I couldn't understand the words, but I understood the tone. Anger, accusations, threats. Then I heard the crash. My nurse's instincts overrode my common sense. I ran toward the study and burst through the door without knocking. 3 men turned to stare at me. Dante stood behind his desk, his knuckles bloody, a broken glass at his feet. A stranger sat in the chair across from him, holding a cloth to a bleeding nose. Marco stood to the side, his hand inside his jacket where I knew he kept a gun. "Emma." Dante's voice was dangerously quiet. "I told you to stay in your room." I heard a crash. I thought someone was hurt. "Someone is hurt." He gestured to the bleeding man. "But he's not worth your concern." The man laughed bitterly, speaking in heavily accented English. "So this is why you've been distracted, Dante? Playing house with your son's pretty nurse?" Something dark flashed in Dante's eyes. "Be very careful what you say next, Salvatore." "Or what? You'll hit me again?" Salvatore sneered. "You're getting soft. First you let someone attack your car, nearly kill your son. Now you're keeping a civilian here like she's part of the family. The other families are talking. They think you're vulnerable. Let them think what they want. They're planning something. You know they are. And she," he pointed at me, "she's a weakness they'll exploit." Dante moved with terrifying speed, hauling Salvatore out of the chair by his collar. "She's off limits. You tell every family, every associate, every 2-bit thug who thinks they can use her against me she's under my protection. Anyone who touches her dies slowly. Understand? You can't protect everyone, Dante. Eventually, you'll have to choose." Dante's fist connected with Salvatore's jaw, and the man crumpled. Marco and another guard I hadn't noticed moved to drag him out. "Get him out of my sight," Dante growled. "And make sure the message is clear. Emma Foster is family now. Family rules apply." They hauled Salvatore away, leaving me alone with Dante. He stood there, breathing hard, his knuckles dripping blood onto his expensive carpet. "You're hurt." I moved toward him, but he held up a hand. "Don't. Let me see your hand. Emma, now." I used my nurse voice. the one that brooked no argument. Sit. To my surprise, he did. I knelt in front of him, gently taking his injured hand in mine. His knuckles were split in 2 places, already swelling. I needed supplies. First aid kit, bathroom, left cabinet. I retrieved it and returned, cleaning his wounds with efficient, practiced movements. He watched me work in silence, his breathing gradually evening out. "You shouldn't have come down here," he finally said. "Probably not. You could have been hurt. So could you." I met his eyes. "That's what you're not getting, Dante. I don't just care about Luca. I stopped, realizing what I'd almost said. "You what?" His good hand came up to cup my cheek. "Finish that sentence, Emma. I care about both of you." It came out as a whisper. I shouldn't, but I do. He stared at me for a long moment, his thumb tracing my cheekbone. "You're right. You shouldn't. I'm not a good man, Emma. I've done things that would horrify you, ordered things that would make you run screaming. I know what you are. Do you?" He leaned closer. "Do you know how many men I've killed? How many lives I've ruined? Do you know what I'm willing to do to protect what's mine? Luca is what's yours, not me. You became mine the moment you saved him." His voice dropped to a rough whisper. "And every day since, you've been burrowing deeper into places I thought were dead. So yes, Emma, you're mine, whether you want to be or not. That's not how it works. In my world, it is." He pulled me closer, and I could feel the heat radiating from his body. "Tell me to stop. Tell me you don't feel this thing between us, and I'll let you go. I'll keep you safe, but I'll stop looking at you like I'm looking at you right now." I should tell him to stop. Should push him away and run back to my room. Should remember that he was dangerous, that this was impossible, that nothing good could come from falling for a man whose hands were stained with blood, but I didn't. "I can't tell you to stop," I whispered, because I'd be lying. His eyes darkened with something fierce and hungry. "Then hold on, Bellissima, because I'm done fighting this." He kissed me. It wasn't gentle or sweet or testing. It was claiming, possessive, a kiss that said "you're mine" more clearly than any words could. His hand slid into my hair, angling my head exactly how he wanted it, and I melted against him like I'd been waiting for this since the first moment I'd seen him. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. "You're playing with fire," I whispered against his lips. "Good." He smiled, dark and devastating. "I like watching things burn." Chapter 5. The Claiming. I didn't go back to my room that night. Dante led me upstairs to his bedroom, a space I'd never entered before, masculine and elegant with dark wood furniture and a massive bed that dominated the room. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the gardens, and I could see the security lights marking the perimeter like a constellation of warnings. Second thoughts? He stood behind me, his hand settling on my waist with a possessiveness that should have frightened me but instead sent heat pooling low in my belly. 1,000 of them. "Name one, and I'll take you back to your room." His lips brushed my neck, just below my ear, and I shivered. "I'll walk away and never touch you again. All you have to do is say the word." I turned in his arms, meeting those dark eyes. "What's the word?" "Stop." He said it simply, his hands gentle on my waist, despite the hunger I could see in his face. "That's always the word, Emma. With me, with this, always. You say stop, and everything stops." Something in my chest cracked at the care in his voice. The genuine offer of control in a situation where I should have. None. This man who commanded with absolute authority was giving me power over him. I reached up and touched his jaw, feeling the scratch of stubble, the heat of his skin. "I don't want to stop." His control shattered. He kissed me again, deeper this time, walking me backward until my legs hit the bed. We fell together, a tangle of limbs and desperate touches, and for the first time in years, I felt completely alive. He took his time undressing me, his scarred hands reverent as they revealed my skin. When he found the burn scars on my arms, the ones from the fire that killed my sister, he paused. "These? From before. A different fire." Understanding flickered in his eyes, and he lowered his head, pressing gentle kisses to each scar. "You've been marked by fire twice now. Saving people you love. I didn't save her, but you tried." He looked up at me. "You always try, don't you? That's who you are. The woman who runs toward danger to save others, even when it costs you." Tears burned my eyes. "Dante, I see you, Emma. All of you. The scars you hide, the guilt you carry, the desperate need to save everyone because you couldn't save her. He moved up my body, caging me beneath him. Let me carry some of that weight. Let me protect you for once, instead of you protecting everyone else. I pulled him down to me, and we came together with an intensity that stole my breath. He was careful with me, attentive, reading my responses like a language he'd been studying. When I gasped, he repeated the movement. When I tensed, he gentled. When I finally shattered in his arms, he held me through it, whispering words in Italian I didn't understand but felt in my bones. Afterward, we lay tangled together, my head on his chest, his fingers tracing idle patterns on my spine. Through the window, I could see the first hints of dawn. Tell me something real, I whispered. Something that has nothing to do with who you are out there. He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I wanted to be a pianist. I lifted my head to look at him. What? Before all this, before I inherited the family business, I wanted to play piano, classical music, concert halls, that whole impossible dream. He smiled, self-deprecatingly. My father said it was weak. Music was for women and fools, not for men who would rule empires. Do you still play? Sometimes, late at night when no one's listening. There's a music room on the 3rd floor. I'll show you sometime. I settled back against his chest. I'd like that. What about you? What did you want before you became a nurse? To be a dancer. I felt him tense in surprise. Ballet, specifically. I trained from age 5 until 17. Was accepted into a professional company. Had my whole life planned out. What happened? Sarah died, and I couldn't dance anymore. Every time I tried, I'd see the fire, remember her screaming. I closed my eyes. So I became a nurse instead. Figured if I couldn't dance, I could at least save lives. Make up for the one I couldn't save. His arms tightened around me. You don't owe the universe your happiness because your sister died, Emma. Don't I? No. He tilted my chin up, forcing me to meet his eyes. Sarah wouldn't want you living in guilt. Neither would any of the people you've saved since then. They'd want you to live. Really live. Not just exist in penance. Is that what you're offering? Life? I'm offering everything I have. His expression was fierce, possessive. My protection, my home, my son who already loves you, my bed, my... He stopped, jaw clenching. You're what? My heart. He said it like a confession, like it cost him something. If you want it, it's not a good heart, Emma. It's dark and damaged and it's done terrible things, but it's yours if you'll take it. I should say no. Should protect myself from the inevitable pain this would cause. We were impossible, the Mafia boss and the nurse. Fire and water, darkness and light. But I was already falling. I want it, I whispered. God help me, I want all of it. He kissed me again, sealing the deal in a way that felt more binding than any words. When we finally fell asleep, tangled together as dawn broke over the gardens, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Chapter 6. The Unraveling. I woke to an empty bed and the sound of shouting downstairs. Panic clawed up my throat as I grabbed Dante's discarded shirt and pulled it on, running barefoot into the hallway. The shouting was coming from the main floor, multiple voices, all angry, all raised. I found them in the foyer. Dante, dressed in fresh clothes, standing nose to nose with a man I didn't recognize. Marco was there, along with half a dozen guards, all watching the confrontation with tense readiness. Can't just declare her family without the council's approval. The stranger was shouting. You're not a king, Dante. You don't make these decisions alone. I don't need the council's approval for my personal life, Victor. When your personal life affects all 5 families, yes you do. Victor's face was red with fury. You're making us vulnerable. First the failed hit on your son. Now this civilian living in your home, warming your bed. Dante's fist connected with Victor's jaw before anyone could move to stop him. The older man staggered backward, blood streaming from his mouth. Speak about her again, Dante said, his voice deadly calm, and I'll kill you where you stand. Family ties be damned. That's when Victor saw me standing on the stairs in Dante's shirt, my hair mussed from sleep, and his eyes widened with vindication. So it's true, he laughed bitterly, spitting blood. The great Dante Moretti, compromised by a woman. Your father is rolling in his grave. My father, Dante growled, can rot. Marco, get him out. Dante, Marco began, but Dante cut him off. Now. They escorted Victor out, his threats echoing behind him about the council. Consequences. Votes of no confidence. I waited until the door slammed before descending the stairs. What was that about? Dante turned to me, and I saw the cracks in his control, the fury barely contained, the fear beneath it. Get dressed. We need to talk. 20 minutes later, I was in his study, properly clothed, trying to make sense of what he was telling me. The 5 families operate under a council system, he explained, pacing behind his desk like a caged animal. All major decisions require unanimous approval from family heads. Victor represents the Castellano family, and he's been looking for a reason to challenge my leadership since I took over. And I'm that reason? You're the excuse. He stopped pacing, bracing his hands on the desk. The real issue is that I'm consolidating power in ways that threaten the old guard. The attack on Luca was meant to destabilize me, make me seem vulnerable. Instead, I got stronger, more careful, more ruthless. They don't like it. So what does this mean for us? His eyes met mine. It means the council will demand I send you away, for your safety and theirs. They'll argue that keeping you here makes all 5 families targets. Cold dread settled in my stomach. And will you? No. He said it firmly, without hesitation. You're not a bargaining chip, Emma. You're not a weakness to be eliminated. You're... He stopped, struggling with words. What am I? Everything. He moved around the desk, pulling me to my feet, his hands framing my face. You're everything I didn't know I needed. You gave me back my son's smile. You made this house feel like a home instead of a fortress. You made me remember what it feels like to be human, instead of just a weapon for family interests. Dante, I won't give you up. Not for the council, not for the families, not for anyone. His thumbs stroked my cheekbones. But I need you to understand what that means. Choosing you means war. It means the other families will move against me. It means danger for you, for Luca, for everyone in this house. Then maybe I should go. Don't. His grip tightened. Don't you dare martyr yourself for me. I've been fighting these families my whole life. If they want war, they'll get war. But I'm not fighting it alone anymore. I'm fighting it for you. Before I could respond, the study door burst open. Mrs. Chen stood there, her normally calm face twisted with fear. Mr. Moretti, it's Luca. He's gone. Time stopped. Dante moved faster than I'd ever seen him, already shouting orders into his phone as he ran toward the nursery. I followed, my heart in my throat, praying this was a mistake, that Luca was just hiding or playing somewhere unexpected. But the nursery was empty. The windows were open windows that were always kept locked, and on the bed lay a single piece of paper with a message that made my blood run cold. You want her? Come get your son first. Alone. Midnight. The old warehouse district. Tell anyone. And he dies. The council Dante's roar of rage shook the walls. Chapter 7. The Revelation. The mansion erupted into controlled chaos. Marco mobilized every guard, every associate, every person who owed Dante loyalty. Phones rang constantly. Maps were spread across every surface. Men in suits arrived by the dozen, all grim-faced and armed, and I stood in the middle of it, frozen with horror. This was my fault. They'd taken Luca because of me. It's not your fault. Dante appeared beside me, his jaw set, his eyes cold with fury. But his hand, when it touched my shoulder, was gentle. This was always coming. You're just the excuse they used. He's 3 years old, Dante. He must be terrified. He's strong, like his father. But I could see the fear beneath the iron control. We'll get him back. The note said alone. I'm aware of what the note said. He turned to face me fully. And I'm going alone. That's insane. It's obviously a trap. Of course it's a trap. His lips twisted into something that wasn't quite a smile. But it's also the only play I have. They want me isolated, vulnerable, without my army. Fine, I'll give them that. And when I'm close enough, I'll kill every single person who thought they could take my son. The absolute certainty in his voice sent chills down my spine. This wasn't the man who'd held me last night, who'd offered me his heart. This was the devil of the 5 families, the killer whose reputation was built on blood. Let me come with you. No, Dante, no. He gripped my shoulders. You stay here, where it's safe. Marco will protect you. If I don't come back. Don't say that. If I don't come back, he continued firmly, Marco has instructions. Money, documentation, a new identity. You'll be taken somewhere far from here where the families can't reach you. You'll be safe. Tears burned my eyes. I don't want to be safe. I want you and Luca alive. I know, Bellissima. He kissed my forehead, soft and lingering. But if I can only give you one of those things, I choose your safety. Always. He started to pull away, but I grabbed his jacket. Wait. You can't just walk into this blind. You need leverage. I have leverage. They want me dead, but they need the appearance of justice to keep the other families in line. That gives me room to negotiate. That's not enough. You need something else, something they're not expecting. I stopped, a terrible idea forming. What? Dante's eyes narrowed. I know that look. Whatever you're thinking, no. They want you isolated. They expect you to come alone, desperate, willing to do anything for Luca. What if you don't? What if you come with exactly what they're not prepared for? Emma, me. I said it before I could lose my nerve. I'm what they want, right? The weakness they think they can exploit. So give me to them. Absolutely not. Listen to me. I grabbed his face, forcing him to look at me. I'm a nurse. If Luca is hurt, he needs me. And if I'm there, they'll underestimate you, because they'll think you're distracted trying to protect me. It gives you an advantage. It also puts you directly in danger. I'm already in danger. We all are. I gentled my voice. Let me help save him, Dante. Like I helped save him from the fire, we do this together. I could see the war in his eyes, every protective instinct screaming at him to refuse, balanced against cold tactical thinking that recognized the truth in my words. Finally, he pulled my hands from his face and kissed each palm. If you come, you follow my orders exactly. No improvising, no heroics. You do what I say when I say it. Understand? Yes. And Emma? His eyes were dark, fierce. If it comes down to a choice between you and everyone else in that warehouse, I choose you. Every time. Luca would understand. He'd forgive me, but I'll never forgive myself if I lose you. Then don't lose me. He kissed me hard and fast, tasting of desperation and determination. Get dressed. Something dark. Boots you can run in. We leave in an hour. The old warehouse district was a wasteland of abandoned buildings and broken dreams. The kind of place where people disappeared and nobody asked questions. Dante's car, a nondescript sedan, not his usual armored SUV, pulled up to the largest warehouse at 11:45. Remember, he said quietly. You stay behind me until I say otherwise. If shooting starts, you run. Straight back to the car, to Marco. He'd sent his right-hand man ahead to watch from a distance. Don't look back, don't hesitate. Just run. Okay, he touched my face one last time, then opened the car door. The warehouse was lit by industrial lights, casting harsh shadows. As we entered, I saw them at least 20 men in suits, arranged in a semicircle. In the center stood Victor, his jaw still bruised from Dante's punch. And beside him, held by a guard, was Luca. My heart broke at the sight of him. His face was tear-stained, his little body trembling. But when he saw Dante, his face lit up. Papa! The guard's hand clamped over his mouth. Dante Moretti. Victor's voice echoed in the cavernous space. You came, and you brought the girl. How touching. Let my son go, Victor. This is between us. Is it? Victor gestured to the men around him. I recognized some as family heads, others as high-ranking soldiers. This is about the council, about the families. You've become a liability, Dante. Too independent, too powerful, too willing to break tradition. You mean I stopped letting old men like you dictate my life? We built this empire. We made you. No. Dante's voice was cold steel. My father built this empire, and I perfected it. You're just parasites living off the scraps. Victor's face purpled with rage. Arrogant to the end. You think you're untouchable because you're Moretti? Because you have money and men and power? None of that matters when the entire council stands against you. Then let's settle this the old way. Dante spread his arms. You and me, Victor. Leave Emma and Luca out of it. We fight until one of us doesn't get up. The winner takes control of the council. Traditional enough for you? A ripple of surprise moved through the assembled men. This was clearly not what they'd expected. Victor laughed. You think I'm stupid enough to fight you hand to hand? I've seen what you can do, boy. No, this ends differently. He snapped his fingers, and 3 guards grabbed me. Don't touch her. Dante started forward, but a dozen guns appeared, all pointed at his chest. Victor tesked. One more step and they shoot. Now, here's what's going to happen. You're going to watch while we make your little nurse disappear. Then you're going to sign over control of your family operations to the council. And if you're very lucky, we'll let you and your son walk away with your lives. You're making a mistake. Dante's voice was eerily calm, and I saw something predatory shift in his eyes. Last chance to let them go, Victor. Take me if you want, but let them go. Why would I do that when they're the only leverage I have? Victor moved toward me, reaching out to grab my chin. What's so special about this one anyway? Pretty, I'll give you that, but hardly worth starting a war. He never finished the sentence. The lights exploded, plunging the warehouse into darkness. Gunfire erupted from every direction, not from the council's men, but from above, from the shadows, from everywhere and nowhere. I dropped to the ground as the guards released me, trying to return fire at enemies they couldn't see. Dante was on Victor in seconds, using the darkness and chaos as cover. I heard the impact of fist on flesh, Victor's scream of pain, then silence. Someone grabbed my arm, and I almost screamed until I heard Marco's voice. This way, Miss Foster. Stay low. He led me through the darkness, guided by some sense I didn't possess. Behind us, the firefight continued disciplined, precise, nothing random about it. Dante had planned this. We found Luca huddled behind a crate, his guard unconscious on the ground. I grabbed the boy, holding him tight, and Marco led us both out through a side door. Outside, more of Dante's men waited, forming a protective barrier. The shooting inside the warehouse gradually died down, replaced by shouting, then sirens in the distance. And then Dante appeared, blood on his knuckles, his suit torn, but alive, whole, victorious. He saw us, and his entire body sagged with relief. In 3 strides, he had us both in his arms, his face buried in Luca's hair. I thought I'd lost you. His voice broke. Both of you. We're okay, I whispered. We're all okay. He pulled back just enough to kiss me, hard and desperate, not caring about the audience or the chaos or anything except the fact that we'd survived. When he finally released me, his eyes were deadly serious. It's done. Victor's dead. 3 family heads surrendered. The council is dissolved. What does that mean? It means I'm done playing by their rules. He touched my face gently despite the violence still thrumming through him. No more council. No more old traditions. Just me, my family, and the people I choose to protect. Is that what you want, Emma? Because once you say yes to this, there's no going back. You're in my world completely. I looked at Luca, who'd fallen asleep against Dante's shoulder, exhausted from his ordeal. Then at Dante, this dangerous, devoted man who'd just fought an entire council to protect us. I'm already in, I said softly. All the way. Chapter 8. The Choice. The aftermath of the warehouse was a blur of police questioning, legal maneuvering, and media frenzy that Dante's lawyers handled with practiced efficiency. The official story: a dispute between rival criminal organizations that resulted in Victor Castellano's death and the dismantling of a corruption ring within the city's oldest families. Nobody mentioned the nurse who'd been there. Nobody mentioned the child who'd been used as leverage. Dante made sure of that. We returned to the mansion at dawn, all 3 of us exhausted and traumatized in different ways. Luca clung to me like a barnacle, and I had no intention of letting him go. Dante walked beside us, his hand never leaving my back, as if needing the physical confirmation that we were real, safe, his. He should see a counselor, I said quietly as we climbed the stairs to the nursery. Both incidents in less than a month, that's a lot of trauma for a 3-year-old. Agreed. I'll make the arrangements. Dante's voice was hoarse from shouting orders during the firefight. What about you? What about me? You were held at gunpoint, Emma. Threatened, used as leverage. That's traumatic for anyone. I looked at him. This man who'd just dismantled an entire criminal council to save his son and protect me, and managed a tired smile. I'll be fine if you both are. That's all I need. His eyes softened. We're going to have to work. On your martyr complex. We put Luca to bed together, taking turns sitting with him until he finally settled into sleep. The sun was fully up by the time we retreated to Dante's bedroom, both of us moving like we'd aged a decade overnight. Shower. Dante said, pulling off his torn, bloody shirt. Then sleep. We'll figure out the rest later. But as the hot water washed away the warehouse's grime and fear, reality began to settle. This was my life now. This violence, this danger, this world where children got kidnapped and men died in firefights. Could I really live like this? Could I raise Luca in this world? Did I have a choice? Dante found me sitting on the bathroom floor after my shower, wrapped in a towel, staring at nothing. He crouched beside me without a word and pulled me into his arms. Talk to me. I can't do this. It came out as a broken whisper. I thought I could, but Dante, they took Luca. They were going to kill me to hurt you. How do I live knowing that might happen again? How do I watch him play and know that somewhere, someone might be planning to take him away? The same way I've lived with it since he was born. His voice was rough with emotion, with fear in my heart and guards at every door, and the absolute certainty that I'll burn down the world before I let anyone hurt him again. That's not a life. That's a siege. It's the life I have, the life I'm offering you. He pulled back to look at me. I won't lie to you, Emma. There will always be danger, always be risks. I've made too many enemies, broken too many rules, taken too much power. But I can minimize those risks. I can build walls so high and so strong that no one can touch what's mine. We'd be prisoners in a gilded cage. We'd be safe in a home we control. He touched my face. But if you can't live like this, I understand. I'll set you up somewhere far from here, give you enough money to start over, protect you from a distance. You'll be safe, Emma. Even if you're not with me, you'll be safe. I swear it. He meant it. I could see it in his eyes, the willingness to let me go if that's what I needed. Even if it broke him. This man who controlled everything, who demanded absolute loyalty, was offering me freedom. What about Luca? Pain flickered across his face. He'll miss you. We both will. But you can't stay just for him. That's not fair to anyone. What if I'm staying for me? Hope sparked in his dark eyes. Are you? I thought about the past month, about the way Luca had healed in my presence, how his nightmares had faded, about the way Dante looked at me like I was his salvation and his downfall, about how, despite everything, I'd felt more at home in this mansion than anywhere I'd lived since Sarah died, about how, for the first time in a decade, I'd stopped trying to save everyone else and let someone try to save me. I'm terrified, I admitted, of the danger, of losing you both, of failing Luca the way I failed Sarah, but I'm more terrified of walking away and spending the rest of my life wondering what if. What if I'd been brave enough to stay? What if I'd chosen love over fear? Love? His voice was barely a whisper. Yes. I met his eyes steadily. I love you, Dante. I love your son. I love the life you're offering, even with all its impossible complications. So I'm choosing to stay, not because you're forcing me, not because I have no other options, but because this is where I want to be. He kissed me then, slow and deep and reverent, like I was something precious he'd never expected to hold. When we finally broke apart, there were tears on his cheeks. I love you. He said it fiercely, like a vow. I'll spend the rest of my life keeping you safe, making you happy, proving you made the right choice. I know I did. We made it to the bed this time, and our lovemaking was different from before, slower, more tender, layered with the knowledge of what we'd almost lost. Afterward, we lay tangled together, and I felt him, relax completely for the first time since the warehouse. What happens now? I asked. With the families, the council, all of it? Now I rebuild. Consolidate power, eliminate threats, establish new rules that don't put civilians at risk. His fingers traced patterns on my spine. It'll take time, but I'm patient when I need to be. And us? 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 He propped himself up on one elbow, looking down at me with eyes full of heat. Us. I'm not patient about it all. Marry me, Emma. I stared at him. What? Marry me. Make it official, legal, permanent. Be my wife, Luca's mother, the one thing in my life that's completely mine. He touched my face. Unless you need more time. Yes. Because I can wait if you... He stopped. What? Yes, I'll marry you. I smiled at his shock. Did you really think I'd say no after everything? I thought you'd want to think about it, consider the implications, maybe date for a while like normal people. I kissed him to shut him up. We're not normal people, Dante. Normal people don't fall in love in a month. Normal people don't face down criminal councils together. Normal people don't rescue children from fires and decide to build a family in the aftermath. I touched his face, feeling the stubble, the warmth, the reality of him. I love you. I want to marry you. So let's skip the traditional timeline and do what works for us. His smile was devastating. You're extraordinary, you know that? I'm terrified and in love and possibly insane. But yes, let's go with extraordinary. He kissed me again, and we got lost in each other until there was a knock on the door. Papa? Luca's voice, small and scared. Bad dream. We both moved immediately, pulling on clothes and opening the door. Luca stood there in his dinosaur pajamas, clutching his stuffed lion, tears streaming down his face. Come here, baby. I picked him up, and he buried his face in my neck. The bad men came back. Just a dream, Dante said softly, running a hand over Luca's hair. The bad men are gone forever. Emma and I made sure of it. Promise? Promise. He met my eyes over Luca's head. We both promise. We brought him into our bed first, breaking Dante's rule about Luca sleeping alone and curled around him protectively. Within minutes, he was asleep again, safe between us. He called you Emma, Dante whispered in the darkness. I know. Should we tell him? About us? About me being his new mother? I smiled. Let's give him a few days to process the trauma. Then we'll tell him together. He deserves to know he's getting a family, not just a nanny. A family. Dante said it like he was testing the word. I'd almost forgotten what that felt like. Well, remember fast, because you're stuck with us now. His arm tightened around both of us. Best trap I've ever walked into. Chapter 9, The Surrender. The wedding happened 3 weeks later, small and private in the mansion's garden with only people we trusted. Marco stood up as Dante's best man, looking simultaneously proud and terrified of what he'd helped unleash. Mrs. Chen cried through the entire ceremony, and Luca, wearing a tiny tuxedo that made him look impossibly grown up, held the rings with solemn importance. When Dante slid the band onto my finger platinum with diamonds that probably cost more than most houses, his hands shook slightly. You're mine now, he whispered. Officially, legally, irrevocably mine. I was always yours, I whispered back. This just makes it official. The kiss was chaste for the audience but promised heat for later. Luca cheered, and the small gathering of guards and staff applauded. Can I call you Mama now? Luca asked as soon as the ceremony ended, tugging on my dress. I crouched down to his level, my heart full. Would you like to? Yes, because you're Papa's wife now, and that makes you my mama. He threw his small arms around my neck. The best mama ever because you saved me from the fire. I held him, tight, tears streaming down my face. And you saved me right back, baby. All of you did. Dante joined us, and we stood there, a family, real and permanent, and ours. Around us, the garden bloomed with late autumn flowers, and I thought about fire and rebirth, about how sometimes you have to burn down completely to build something new. That night, after the reception and after we'd put an exhausted Luca to bed, Dante led me to the third-floor music room I'd never seen. It was beautiful wood floors, perfect acoustics, and in the center, a concert grand piano. You said you wanted to hear me play. He sat at the bench and patted the space beside him. I settled next to him, and he began. The music was haunting, beautiful, something classical I didn't recognize but felt in my bones. His fingers moved over the keys with the same precision and control he brought to everything else. But here, in this private space, he let his guard down completely. When the piece ended, I realized I was crying. Chopin, he said softly. Nocturne in E-flat major. My mother used to play it when I was young, before she died. It's beautiful. So are you. He turned to face me fully. I never thought I'd have this, Emma. A wife, a family, someone who sees past the monster to the man underneath. You gave me that. You're not a monster. I'm both. He said it simply, without apology. I've done monstrous things to protect what's mine. I'll do them again if I have to. But with you, with Luca, I get to be human too. That's what you gave me, the permission to be both. I took his scarred hands in mine. Then I'll love both versions. The monster who protects his family and the man who plays Chopin at midnight. He kissed me there on the piano bench, soft and slow, and it felt like coming home. The weeks turned into months, and we built our life. Luca's nightmares faded, replaced by dreams of superheroes and dinosaurs. He started preschool at a private academy with more security than Fort Knox, but he thrived there, making friends and learning with the same fierce intelligence his father possessed. Dante dismantled the old family structure, restructuring his empire to focus on legitimate business, with only a few gray area operations left. He'd never be completely clean, too much history, too many enemies, but he tried. For us, he tried. And me? I went back to nursing part-time, working at a clinic Dante funded for underserved communities. It wasn't the same as the ER, but it let me use my skills while still being home for Luca every evening. We had dinner together every night, the three of us around the table, talking about our days like any normal family. Except we weren't normal, and we never would be. There were still guards at every door, still threats that Dante handled before they reached us, still moments when I woke up and checked that they were both breathing. But there was also love. So much love it sometimes overwhelmed me. The way Luca would run to me after school, yelling "Mama," like I was the best thing in his world. The way Dante looked at me across the dinner table, his eyes soft with the kind of devotion that made me feel cherished and claimed in equal measure. The way we'd curl up together at night, 3 bodies in one bed, and I'd feel safer than I'd ever felt in my life. 6 months after the wedding, I came home from the clinic to find Dante and Luca in the garden, both covered in dirt, planting flowers. "What's this?" Luca jumped up, excited. "We're making a memory garden. Papa said we should plant flowers to remember all the good things." Dante stood, brushing dirt from his hands. He wanted to plant something for the day you saved him from the fire. I thought we could make it bigger, a flower for every important moment. I looked at the garden beds they'd prepared, already imagining them full of blooms. That's perfect. We planted together that afternoon roses for the day we met, lilies for the wedding, sunflowers for the wedding, Luca's first day of school, and in the center, where everyone could see, we planted forget-me-nots. "For Sarah?" Dante asked quietly as we knelt in the dirt. I nodded, tears blurring my vision. "She'd have liked you, I think. Would have told me I was crazy for falling for a Mafia boss, but she'd have understood why. Why did you?" It wasn't a question he'd asked before. "Fall for me, I mean. I gave you every reason to run." I looked at him, this complicated, dangerous, devoted man who'd given me everything. "Because you saw me. Not the nurse, not the hero who ran into fires, not the girl trying to make up for her dead sister. You saw Emma, and you loved her anyway. How could I not fall for that?" He kissed me there in the dirt, with Luca giggling beside us, and the guards pretending not to watch from their posts, and the sun setting over our garden. "I love you," he whispered against my lips. "Every day, more than the day before. I love you too." I touched his face, feeling the stubble, the warmth, the life we'd built together. "Both of you, my beautiful, impossible family." "We're not impossible," Luca said seriously. "We're real. I can touch you." He proceeded to demonstrate by hugging us both, and we collapsed into laughter on the grass, tangled together like we'd always been meant to be. Later that night, after Luca was asleep, Dante found me on the balcony off our bedroom, staring at the gardens below. "Regrets?" he asked, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "None." I leaned back against his chest. "Sometimes I still can't believe this is my life, that I'm married to you, that Luca calls me Mama, that we're building something real here. Believe it." His lips brushed my temple. "You're mine, Emma Moretti. For now, for always, for every life after this one." Possessive, always. But there was warmth in his voice, amusement. "You knew what you were getting into." "I did." I turned in his arms to face him. "And I'd choose it again, every single time. Choose you. Choose this life. Choose the beautiful chaos of loving you both." He kissed me slow and deep, and I tasted forever on his lips, a forever we'd fought for, bled for, chosen despite every reason not to. A forever that started with fire and ended with love. Epilogue. The life. 1 year later, I stood in the same garden where we'd married, watching Luca chase butterflies through the flowers we'd planted together. He was 4 now, all long limbs and endless energy, laughing as he ran. Dante appeared beside me, slipping his arm around my waist and pulling me close. "He's happy." "He is." I leaned against him. "We all are. Even you? No lingering doubts about choosing life with a criminal?" "Former criminal," I corrected with a smile. "You went legitimate, remember?" "Mostly legitimate." His eyes glinted with dark amusement. There are still a few gray areas. I can live with gray. I touched his face. As long as I can live with you. He kissed me gently, and I felt the same spark that had been there from the beginning. The pull between fire and water, darkness and light, danger and safety. We were contradictions that somehow worked, impossible pieces that fit. Mama! Papa! Look what I found! Luca ran toward us, his hands cupped carefully around something. What is it, baby? He opened his hands to reveal a small bird, its wing clearly injured. He's hurt. Can we fix him? I looked at Dante, and we both smiled. Our son, who'd survived fire and kidnapping, who'd seen violence and danger, and who'd still grown into a boy who wanted to save injured creatures. We can try, I said, taking the bird gently. Let's get him inside and see what we can do. As we walked back to the house, Dante, Luca, and me with our tiny patient, I thought about saving and being saved. About how I'd run toward fire to pull a child free and ended up saving myself in the process. About how the most dangerous man I'd ever met had given me the safest place I'd ever known. About how sometimes love means surrender, not giving up, but giving in to something bigger than yourself. Choosing it even when it's terrifying, even when it's impossible, even when every rational part of your brain screams to run. I'd chosen fire and found home in the flames, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat.